Good evening, good evening, good evening. I am so excited this evening to have Minister Crystal Sage with us today. What a beautiful bright light. I was telling her before I pressed record that I'm wearing this bright blue just for her to match her amazing, vibrant energy. Let's go ahead and tell you a little bit about Crystal, and then we're going to get started on this awesome conversation that I'm looking forward to on IMCM. Interfaith Multicultural Ministries, How to Community Ministry podcast. A little bit about Minister Saiyge. She is a queer Black woman, a sex positive interfaith minister. She attended Cheney University of PA as a communication student, and after working as a live-in counselor, like many of us, she attended seminary, Wesley to be correct, where she earned a master's degree in theological studies. While she was in seminary, she worked as a community organizer, activist, minister at the Sanctuaries, DC, which was an interfaith nonprofit for social justice, the arts, and spirituality. She is an itinerant minister in the Unitarian Universalist faith, though she is also agnostic and practices Buddhism. Crystal is an education and allyship consultant. That's fabulous for corporations, schools, and individuals. She uses her gifts to create healing spaces for her clients. She started Crystal Sage Consulting LLC in 2018 to help the world grow into a place that feels safe for all people through accountability, compassion, and effective communication. She also has an amazing website, a virtual chapel called Crystal Sage's Chapel, that is a liberated space for global spirituality, thoughtful inspiration, grief counseling, sex positive education, and this I'm going to ask about, trap karaoke. You can visit her at crystalsage.com. That's crystalsayge.com to connect. She is currently the executive administrator of the UU Society of Community Ministers. Crystal has 4 children, and along with her husband, whom she met at Cheney, they are her favorite ministry. Welcome this evening on Thanksgiving Eve, Crystal. Welcome.
Thank you so much. You picked the best things about me to highlight.
There are so many amazing things that I saw. You got to just choose, bring it down to something that's readable. Um, so many reasons why I'm excited to speak with you today. Firstly, I want to start with your title. One of your titles is Trap Chaplain. Trap Chaplain, such a unique title. Can you tell us how you came to choose it and what does it mean?
Yeah, and sometimes I just say Traplain, but I that's for people who are in ministry because then they think it's very funny. Other people who don't know what a chaplain is are not going to know what Traplain means. But it's Trap Chaplain. Well, it's kind of corny, but there's a song by Nicki Minaj, "Bees in the Trap," and I think for myself, chaplaincy is supposed to be where the people are. And
Mm,
so for me, sometimes people bees in the trap. So so I'm trying to meet people where they are. And I think that that title or that phrase is one that's overused. And I didn't want to just say I'm a chaplain or I'm a chaplain that's going to meet you where you are. I tried that approach for some years. I tried the I'm a grief counselor. I tried, I'm a healer. I've tried different iterations of that word, of
mm,
that phrase of like, I'm going to meet you where you are. And it's overused in ministry spaces and in church spaces where they don't mean it. They mean you come here
wow.
or you come as you are, but not like that. Or I'll come where you are, but maybe not there. Or I'll come where you are, but I'm not going to like it.
Mm,
Come where you are, but I'll tolerate it. I'll meet you where you are, but I love the sinner and I hate the sin. I'm none of those things. I don't believe in any of those things.
mm,
So me being a trap chaplain means that like you come to where the outskirts of society are and I'm there too. Not I'm there to get you. Not I'm there to bring you somewhere. Not I'm there to pull you into some more holy space. I'm
Mm,
saying, hey, we like this. We like sex. We like having a drink. And to be honest, a lot of people who are Christian, it would be hard to prove that Jesus didn't like it too.
come on.
It
Yeah.
doesn't say, it says Jesus was there. And so a lot of that theology around like Jesus went to those sinful places and he was with the prostitutes and he was with the, didn't say he didn't like it either. But we don't that's another conversation. That's a bigger conversation to argue with some people who would be like, what? But that's
Hmm.
the thing, is that like acting as if there's some big separation between our bodies and our souls, or our physical and our in the in our higher power, has led a lot of people to have really public engagement and really private lives. They're
Hmm.
able to show up to church, but then the rest of the week they're doing their own thing. They listen to whatever they want to, but then on Sunday morning they're listening to gospel. And I'm just pushing back on that by saying that I'm in ministry with that music. I'm in
Yeah.
ministry with those delicious parts of life, and hoping that that will lead to more people asking me why.
You
Why
know,
do you think that's okay?
as you're talking about the song, it's on one of my playlists. A bees in the chat, bees in the chat.
That's so
I appreciate the fact that you are pushing back against what has historically been unspoken of, sex positivity, the things we keep in our closets, and it's so, in my opinion, so deeply connected to those of us in the queer community who stayed in closets so much longer because of how we thought our church family would receive us for
right.
years, and for many of us decades. And so I appreciate this idea of meeting people where they are. I think possibly you alluded to who inspired you to meet people where they are, and mentioning Jesus. What in your own personal life, in your own personal experience, gave you the call to make this charge into the margins to meet people where they're at?
Yeah, I love Jesus, but I would say Buddha more. Buddha's story is that he was a prince. He was kept away from society. He had people waiting on him and giving him food, and warm breeze, I mean, cool breezes and everything on a warm day. And he decided to leave the castle. And I think it's a lot of what's depicted with Jasmine and Aladdin. It's really a similar type of idea of
Mhm.
Buddha goes out three different times. The first time Buddha goes out, he sees a old person, and he didn't realize that people age because they had been keeping them away from him when they were older, people inside of his castle. Then the second time he goes out, he sees a person who had died and was being taken. He was being carried in a procession. He had never realized that. He never thought about that. Someone that's serving him, and then they just disappear, and he never thought about it. They were shielding him from death as well. And then the third time he saw a monk, and he said, I want to be like that. And so he actually left the castle, became a monk, and meditated for a long time. And also, I know I'm talking to someone who knows this story. and
Mhm.
and that life seemed to be far removed from reality as well. And so
Mhm.
then he realized that, well, like, I should spend some time um helping people find themselves and figure out who they are. And for me, Buddhism gives you a path where you take yourself everywhere, so you don't have to worry about there being some profane, or there being some, that's a theological term for anyone listening, but that's there's something that's unholy versus there's some holy land. That burning bush where Moses stood on holy land was Moses's thing. That was
Mm.
for them. That's
Yeah.
not for everybody. Everybody doesn't have to have a holy bush where they have to take their shoes off in holy land. Some people,
Wow.
like in my journey, I feel like I'm taking that holy with me because I found a peace in myself where I know if I need something, I can hear it. If I need something, it's going to be revealed to me. If I need some to serve someone, they'll show themselves to me. So I think that there's a lot of people who are gifted in that same way,
Wow.
and church doesn't hold them well. I just don't think that a lot of institutions, I'll say black church, a lot of black institutions don't hold those type of gifts well,
Mm.
because we came from a history in Black church where all of our gifts were to serve the church because we were serving each other and we were serving
Of
community.
course. Yeah,
That was a
yeah,
great thing at a certain time.
yeah.
Mr. So-and-so drives a taxi and we expect he's going to be able to help on Sunday and get people to church. That was a beautiful thing for our community. But I think as we've transitioned into a modern time, those people whose particular gifts are being at the corner place playing chess, those particular people whose gifts are just being everywhere and still being great, we
Mm,
don't have a place for them because we're pushing a holiness lifestyle or some type of separation from those places because we want people to come to church.
mm.
We don't want you to, we don't, we if you can have if you can have that hang out at the club ministry but still come to friends and family day and bring them people with you, we're fine. But if you're not going to bring them, we don't treat you as an itinerant at the strip club minister. We don't
Yeah,
say, we don't treat you as that being a giftedness of
yeah.
like there's certain people who can still be completely at peace and do what they want. That's the most clear way I can say it. And
Would
and I do think that there are certain people who really exist in that way, and I'm one of them.
would you say that, and since because we're going to go into speaking about your book, Rituals for the Souls of Black Folks.
Yes.
That's a shortened title, and we'll make sure that everyone has the information on how to get access to that. Um, let's go ahead and delve a little deeper into this
Yeah.
blackness and the Christian church,
Yeah.
right? And how our identities have been wrapped up in this subservient to the scriptures type thing. Okay, so
Yeah.
you are opening, encouraging people to open their minds, the Black community to open their minds in the ways that we perceive ourselves
Yes.
and our sacredness.
Yes.
And would
Yeah.
you say that we are looking to bring people's righteous and ratchet into the same room?
That would be great.
Yeah, yeah.
That's what Church of the Bando is. So the Crystal Sages Chapel is a space for everybody, but the Church of the Bando is Black center and is kind of like its own like small group ministry for Black centered behavior and Black centered things. And the righteous and the ratchet together is some people's holiness. That's some people's exact version of holy.
Hmm.
It just is.
Can you
And
dive deeper into Church of the Bando? Now, this, of course, is information that everyone will find on Crystal's website.
yes.
Pretending that no one knows about the website and Church of the Bando, please dive into that for us.
So the Bando name came from, well, first of all, the Bando name being pulled from rap music and trap music that focuses on play on words of the bando being a place where drugs are sold and places where but the bando is the same as back in the day saying the hood. Like it can be synonymous. It doesn't mean it's a literal drug house. It can mean that we're in the hood or we're in the place where our people are at. Thanksgiving tomorrow might turn into the bando for a lot of us
Yeah.
where we're cousins are going to take a walk and smoke and we're talking and yelling and everything. It's just where culture is. And just like that word trap has been taken to add to things just to make it flavorful. Trap yoga with goats. It's like it's the same thing. So the Church of the Bando specifically was me knowing that I wanted something Black center on culture. So I'd say that our religion is culture, creativity, and community.
Hmm.
And I had that name in my mind and in my notes section in my phone. It just kept coming up of like I should have something that's just for the bando for a couple years. And then all of a sudden I decided that I was right. I write things down when I have an idea and I just keep looking at it. And I looked at it one time and I said, what's so funny? Bando sounds like abandoned. And
Mm.
and so then I took that and made a tagline for Church of the Bando. And so the Church of the Bando is for those that have not abandoned all faith. And so Bando is in the middle of abandon. So I
Wow.
always capitalize Bando so people see the play on words. But when I put that out there, girl, that went so far. It just took over.
Yeah.
People come to anything I'm doing and they're just like, oh, I'm here for Church of the Bando. I'm like, don't say that here. Like it just took over because people got it right away.
Yeah.
It wasn't something I had to explain. And I would prefer my ministry be one to where I don't have to explain myself before I come in the room. Because
Yeah.
if you don't like me, it's important to know that. It's
Yeah.
important to know that about yourself, that I'm just going to show up how I am. Now I know how to act and, but I don't wear a collar everywhere. I don't wear, but I also don't wear booty shorts everywhere either. I don't, there's a time and a place, but there's still, crystalness is still consists of all those things that, like, yes, I'm going to have a space where other people
Mm.
come that
Mm.
you might not like, and I'm in this space with you, and I want you to know that I run that type of space. So I was very, I need to get my computer charger. I was really clear about the messaging with the church and the bando, and it literally just took over any of the other spaces I had created.
Hmm. Well, I love that. I love that. You are a ministerial energy that is similar to a lot of whom I've gravitated toward. Uh,
Oh,
and so the Church of the Bando, that's pretty much you have created the table for the people that didn't have a table to sit at.
oh, speak
You
about it. Oh,
created the
also,
table.
I'm gonna be crawling around trying to get my computer to
That's
charge.
fine.
Listen, go ahead.
We are being very, very casual this evening. Very
And so
relaxed,
is my charger.
very real, very human, very laid back. But yeah, so you've created this table for individuals to come to. Church
Yes.
of the Bando being primarily aimed toward our Black communities. And then, did you find in your church? Tell me a little bit about your church and growing up. What brought you to this place of open church?
This is a sensitive topic, but it's going to
Mm.
be. Okay.
What, and I want you to tell it in a comfortable way, or we can do another question. There's no pressure.
I'm an open book.
Yeah.
I am an open book. And for anyone listening, I told Shani, ask me whatever you want. I'm an open book about this. But I do want to think about how I want to say it.
Sure. Yeah, yeah,
So I'm a PK grandkid. So I'm not a
yeah.
PK. And for anyone listening, a pastor's kid. I'm not
Yeah.
a pastor's kid. I'm a pastor's grandkid.
Got you.
Traditionally, PKs have two flavors. They're either real bad or they're real good. So they're in ministry or they're real naughty. They reject the system and reject the church stuff and don't want to come
Yeah.
or have an attitude. PKs have a flavor to them. And
They're
one of my
smoking in the bathroom. They're
Oh,
smoking in
they
the
for
bathroom.
sure. They singing and they were out at the club. And one of my friends from seminary said because pastors' kids know they're not beholden to anybody but a higher power, and
Mm.
they often don't respect their parents because of that. So I was that one.
Okay.
Okay,
Yeah.
so I was that version of a PK. I was singing in church. Still can't sing, so don't know how that was happening.
Mm.
Singing in church, small group ministries, book club, Wednesday night Bible study, feeding the homeless. We always fed on Thanksgiving, so we went to service in the morning. I was in ministry when it wasn't even my calling. It wasn't even
Mm.
something I liked. I was hoarse all the time until I had my kids. And I pulled back a lot because I was being asked to sing because people, my pastor, who is my uncle, that's why I say it's very sensitive, what liked my spirit. So had me singing and I didn't want to sing and I liked it, but I can't sing. So it was messing with my ability to do other things I want to do because I want to protest. And now my voice is gone.
Mm.
So it was something to where I like that analogy. Let's go with that. I want to protest, but my voice is gone because I'm singing. What about the people
Mm.
who want to take it to the next level in their relationship, but they're so guilty about sex? What about the rest of the people who want to, I don't know, sing to their kids, but their voice is gone? So I was being put where the institution needed me, and
Mm.
it wasn't where I was thriving the most because it was exhausting. It was giving in a way that wasn't sustainable, and no one around me told me that wasn't okay until I
Mm.
went to seminary, and everyone was like, "You shouldn't be being used that way in your space
Oh,
because it
wow.
exhausts you." And I was like, "Huh? Says
Mm.
who?" And it like says all these other books, pages of the Bible, says all these other things. So I had to start sitting with, and at that time I was still very Christian, but I had to start sitting with some of those inspirational things from Jesus that were a little different. Jesus was in a boat before that story where they woke him up and they wanted him to calm the water.
Mm-hmm.
Everyone wants to focus on him still in the water and put be still and know that I'm God on a tumbler. And no one's talking about Jesus was taking a nap. No one talks about
Mm-hmm.
that part of the story. They had to wake him up. So at some point, this divine person who some of us think are God is God, and I don't know is God or not, was like, I'm sleepy.
Yeah.
Y'all have y'all direct the boat. You all
Mm-hmm.
eat your fish sandwiches. It like that. That's the part that I had to start leaning into, and that liberated me because I started looking at every story in the Bible by every sentence because now I'm getting a theology degree, and I can do that. I don't have to look at the way it was taught to me before. Hallelujah. I can
Did
look
it
at
have something about, did it have something to do about agency, like agency being taken from you, from your voice, agency being taken from the story of Jesus because he needed to rest, but they needed to talk about him walking on the water. I mean, is it about agency, the humanity?
Yeah. And I have a theology where every sentence that somebody had to put in scripture was a choice. And so
Hmm.
somebody included every bit of all the things because half of the time they don't say where Jesus was going, where he was coming from, but they included this. And
Mm.
there's a reason behind that. So the fact that we have to focus on the fact that he stilled the water, to me, it's just a domino effect of a choice of a choice of a choice of another pair of pastors and ministers that read it that way. There's no telling that an early church didn't say, look, Jesus slept too. Nap ministry. So yeah, I do think agency is a really fantastic word to describe what was empowering for me. That autonomy to say, like, I need to choose what makes sense for me in my body right now and what I think I'm gifted in.
That's dope. And what you've been doing is just bringing it again back to this Church of the Bando, being a Traplain, creating the space for people to come to, reaching out to the people in the margins. You, in regaining your voice, reached out to yourself.
Yes.
And yeah,
Yeah.
that's deep.
Oh yes. Everything I'm doing is for me too.
Hmm.
It's for me first.
Yeah.
Every service I offer is for me first. Everything I
Hmm.
say I can help you do, I'm doing too.
Hmm.
Giving you grief support. I'm still grieving. If I'm saying that I can help you with, if I'm doing karaoke, trap karaoke, I'm singing. Everything I'm doing is reaching out to me too. And the
Mm.
thing is that if the highest commandment in most religions is to love your neighbor as yourself, but that
As
means I have to
yourself.
love myself first.
Wow.
I love your neighbor as yourself. So I have to love Crystal, and I can't love you more than
You don't
me.
love yourself.
There's no way. And I'm going to
Yeah.
love you at that level. And
Yep.
that's why it's so easy for Christians to mistreat people in the modern times because they probably do love you as much as they love themselves. How can I be a good neighbor if I'm not taking care of my house?
That's deep. That's deep. Okay, then I'm going to, I've got a question about where we are in our political climate.
Oh, sure.
I'm going to talk about this allyship idea,
Hmm.
the creating the table, the creating the church, focusing on oneself, loving all aspects of your humanness, not just your emotional, your physical, your mental, but also your sexual, all of that. What do you think is the best way for us to move forward in ministry, um, to be the best allies for others in the margins in this political climate?
Oh, community organizing. I had formal training in community organizing because I saw that people using activism to reach across and to make little systems was
Hmm.
a really beneficial skill. It wasn't just something you happen upon.
Yeah.
And so I took a class at my school at Wesley after I had graduated. I took three classes after I had graduated, and that was one of them was community organizing. And a lot of community organizing pivots. It's what we do for the times. And so I think a lot of underground communication, a lot of meeting to break bread so that we can talk and not have phones and cameras around. I think making sure that there's enough virtual spaces as well for people who have different physical abilities to still
Mm-hmm.
connect with people.
Mm-hmm.
I think mutual aid is going to be important because when we have systems being run by people who are loyal to something
Come on.
as opposed to just doing their job, you might not get things as quickly. You might not get approved for things like so the social safety net that we all pay into may not be as lucrative or as abundant. So I think continuing to help each other in that way is going to be empowering and beneficial because if somebody helps you with your rent, you're not going to forget them. You're going to come back when they need help. And I have somebody who I helped with their rent a couple years ago, and she's helped me when I was down.
That's a
Years
blessing.
later, she was a complete stranger, and she helped me. And I organized a lot of people, and we donated together, and we are still friends. And she has absolutely, I make way less money than I did a couple years ago, and she's helped me now. And so mutual aid and those things reaching across it to me is kind of a flavor of community organizing.
Mm-hmm.
But within Unitarianism or some of our interfaith spaces, community ministry is that too. It can be that. It can
Mm-hmm.
be organizing.
Would you say that Church of the Bando is, would you consider it to be a template for promoting radical allyship, even though it's Black focused?
Yes, of
You know,
course. Oh yeah. Yeah, I have a lot of I have a lot of people who are not black who we have whole conversations about whatever we want to and they're just sitting there. It's fine because it's black centered. So
right.
radical allyship for me, I have a book Spirited Allyship that is completely underground because I anticipated the political climate was going to go here a while ago and decided to pull back that book. And now, if anyone wants it, I'll like send you a PDF of it. But in that book, I define allyship as a unearned friendship to a different people group than
Mm,
you. And so that is
that's
to
deep.
me, yeah, thanks.
Unearned friendship. Unearned
Unearned
friendship.
friendship. And for me, my space is definitely encouraging radical allyship because one of the difficulties sometimes that I find that white people have is that they don't have different types of friendships. They don't have different
Mm,
words for like there's a homie or there's like a work friend or there's like a
yeah.
acquaintance. Like,
Yep.
it's like my play sister or whatever. They literally do not have those different categories and sometimes get really confused where I when I first started teaching this way, I had multiple groups tell me this of like, what do you mean a different type of friend? I was like, oh, I did not recognize this. And sometimes we don't have enough anthropologists that note things about whiteness before social media of like, does everyone not do this? So it became a thing that like, so since I wrote the book, then a article came out about that in the New York Times like 2 years later that like, apparently there's not different types of friendship. And I'm like, oh my gosh, I wish I would have asked people of color before you wrote this. We
There
all
are different
got
types of
someone.
friendships.
Oh my
Yeah.
gosh, yes.
Yep. Yep.
So I do think that what I'm doing is a way for people to practice that who are not black folk because you have to come in and you have to help sometimes. You
Mm,
have to help because you're white. You have to help because you can. You have to help because you have people at work that can help us with this.
mm-hmm.
And that's just unearned friendship. We don't do anything to earn your friendship, but you're trying to be friends with us. And the reason I say that is the crux of allyship for me is because when you need something, I
Mm,
know what to do. When you need something, I know what to do.
mm-hmm.
I shared with you privately that we had some a tragic thing happen with a very close friend this week.
Mm.
We literally were like, well, we're going to go get him.
Yeah.
And the person lives multiple states over. Now there are certain one of my friends who would be like, don't come to my house unannounced. You know,
Right.
and there are certain people that come to my house unannounced, and there are certain people I would be like, why would you show up here?
Right.
So I've had people tell me I took a COVID test and I'm outside. I'm like, yes, those are my boundaries for coming here. But there's certain people I would be like, because
Right.
you're friends with me, you should know that.
Yeah. Well,
So
there's my dad always said there were friends and associates.
I, absolutely,
If
I
I
feel like it's
said,
so
"Oh, your friend so
normal.
and so," but that's not a friend. That's an
That's your
associate.
associate. That's it's to me. It's so normal that culturally we have associates and then and millennials say acquaintances. So
Hmm.
that unearned friendship to different people groups, allyship means that when it's time to show up for them, you don't have to ask them. If
Mm,
you want to be an ally, but then now an emergency happens and you're saying, hey, do you like this? Hey, what about some blue bracelets? Y'all should know that because
yeah.
you're spending time with us during times of peace for times of war.
Hmm.
So to me, I am creating a space where you're learning how to be during peace. So then when something happens, you know how we want you to show up for us. And people are variegated. Black folk are not a monolith.
Mm,
Nobody. So you're learning different types of there's levels of queerness. There's levels of there's a certain flavor in the queer community that's a little different, and we talk a little different, and we say things a little
it's
different
true.
than a Black person might. Like you might be able to
Yeah.
use the B word with me, but you wouldn't use the B word with another friend from work.
Yeah.
I would. So those types of things to me is important of as a part of allyship. It's like you know how to show up because you're practicing how to be present and how to not take up space, how to not center yourself.
Hmm. And all of this speaks to the idea of, I always think of Shrek when what I'm about to say reminds me of Shrek, when he was talking about having many layers.
Yes.
you know, uh, um, in society as humans, the way that we interact with ourselves and with each other, whether in a faith community or just our general neighborhood in the hood, whatever that is, it's all about the layers. Again, this emotional, the mental, the physical, the spiritual, the sexual, all of those things. And what you've been able to do is, and we will talk in the future. Trust me, we're gonna talk in the future, me and you. um, you're addressing all of the layers in all of the different categories. So we're talking about allyship, allyship being, can you say the phrase you said again, unearned friendship?
Unearned friendship to
That's
different.
so deep. I feel like that could preach. That could really preach a sermon.
Yeah.
Because what that speaks to is when something's unearned, it requires the other person to know how they are to present themselves into a certain space or to a certain group of people. There should already be a knowing, and it's deeper than empathy. It's like almost a spiritual connection, a spiritual knowing. You have to know how to show up. So there's that, and then of course, there's also recognizing the social location of each individual.
Yes.
Because even within and I don't like using the term BIPOC because I feel there's erasure that happens when that people of color thing is used, but I'm going to use it right now just for the
Yeah.
sake of discussion. Um, my my layers of an onion are much different than yours would be. We may have a lot of similarities in our history in this country, and we also have many vast differences.
Yes.
But then I may be speaking to someone who is Latinx, and we may have some similarities and we may have some differences, especially with regard to sexuality
Yeah.
and spirituality, even, right? How did the colonizer impact us all spiritually?
Yes.
And so that's cool that you have this multifaceted vision on how to approach allyship and taking care of the whole person
Thank
while taking care of yourself. And
you.
it's a lot to juggle. It's a huge mantle, Crystal. I don't know
Thank
how you're doing it. I'm watching you.
you.
And then you're a chaplain as well. So
Mhm.
was there a mission at some point for you to also address the life and death aspect, the crossing the veil with others, and what does that look like?
Hmm. Yeah, I I feel like it's the easiest way to house it so that
Mm,
people know that they can bring themselves into this space with me. So I when I first okay, this month we didn't have karaoke.
okay.
Um, I was planning on it being it's the third Friday every month.
Okay.
This last time I had a lot going on and I didn't advertise it in enough time, and I felt like people would be disappointed if they didn't come. So I'm gonna move it probably next week. But last month was also a heavy month. And it was a lot going on with people, and they knew they could come and do karaoke. And it wasn't a lot. I don't have a lot of people come. I've had, 10 people come before, but most months a couple people come, but they need it so bad. They need it so bad. They're
Mm.
talking about work, they're talking about promotions. Then one of the people who was talking about that ended up having me do a resume for them. So they only paid me $15 to do a resume. So like the chaplain thing is the easiest way I can house it for a secular consumption. It's the easiest way I can make people understand what I'm there for them for,
Hmm.
because I'm not, I've tried other names, and I've tried just going by my name. I've tried by just going by Crystal. I tried Crystal Sage for a long time, which is a name I chose.
Hmm.
Minister, I've tried, but me having Minister Crystal Sage, comma, Traplain at the end, or Trap Chaplain, has been the best thing for people to understand what I do. It's a utility title. It's a carpenter title. So yes, if someone died, you can call me, but people are doing that anyway. So it gave them a way to to define me for themselves, because some people that want to lean on me in that way apologize continuously while they're talking to me.
Mm.
And even when I did a service I don't offer anymore, but it was a boot camp for white allies, and they, the whole time they were talking, they would stop and say, and I know you're not a counselor, and I know this is not counseling, I'm so sorry. And it was just so distracting to their process. So when my friends call me and they say, I know this might not be your thing, but I had a dream and I feel like you would know.
Mm.
Yeah, maybe. What was the dream? And then I tell them, oh my God, thank you. I'm so sorry. I'm like, why are you apologizing? So the fact that people have the thought that I might help them, but then the exact next thought that they're imposing was something I was trying to bust up. I was just trying to figure out a way to stop that. So, you know, I don't have any formal training in chaplaincy, actually. I do
Hmm.
not. But, when I went to seminary, that was my plan. And that was something that it's funny because I've supervised other people in their chaplaincy. A lot of people who do chaplaincy need a committee, and I've supervised other people
Yeah, yeah.
in my role at the UU Society Community Center. I mean Community Ministries. We give people faith endorsement for their board certified chaplaincy. So I sit on a panel where we approve people for so I recognize that there is a clinical part of chaplaincy that needs to stay over there, and that's not what I'm
Yeah.
trying to do. I'm trying to chaplain in ways that are in all different types of places.
Hmm.
And I recognize that there was nothing stopping me from using the word chaplain, especially if we have people that are being approved to
Oh,
be
definitely. Yeah.
religious-based chaplains,
Yeah.
religious-based chaplains in Texas from a few hour course
Yeah.
online. I say, oh no, y'all don't own that title.
I think, well, I won't say most, even I myself, in going into seminary, I was going with a focus on chaplaincy. And then somewhere along the process, I was thinking, I don't know if I want it to be so that,
Yeah, so
because
that is
because
it.
that life and death balance is happening with the person you meet in line at the mall, like at JC Penney. Like
That's
it seems to be everywhere, this
that's
life and death
it.
thing.
That's it.
But I think chaplaincy is amazing.
Yeah.
It just ended up not being the direction I'm going. Death doula, I would go in that direction, but
And
I
you know
get it.
what's interesting?
Yeah.
My You said something about the veil being thin, and like people is accompanying you in during that time when my doula, and I just want to say to everyone, she has told this story publicly with my permission. My last birth, I grabbed her and I said, your grandmother's so proud of you. Her
Oh,
grandmother had died.
oh wow.
And I told her a bunch of stuff, and I don't remember. And then we went to the not my last baby, my baby before that one, is she told the story publicly, because we agreed for that one because I was going to go to a hospital setting and I might have a C-section, and we can only have one support person because of COVID, that she would doula with me, let me go to the hospital, and then the rest of the pay would go to watch our other kid.
Yeah.
No, and my stepchild was home because I know I had 4 kids. So my one that lives with the two of us, our kid together, was home with her. And when I went into the hospital, I texted her and I said something about her, she's sorry about something, but that she's going to give you a gift for her birthday. And I said, do you ever give her a birthday gift? When is her birthday? She was like, what are you talking about? So So the about the third day I was in the hospital, her cat died,
Oh
and
my
her cat
gosh.
was her grandmother's cat.
Oh wow.
Oh, the cat died, and she said, "Is this what you're talking about?" I said, "I don't be knowing. You asking me? I'm telling you. I'm telling you because I don't know." So then we left it alone. But then 6 months later, on her grandmother's birthday, her niece was born.
Wow.
I'm telling you that story. I normally don't talk about this type of stuff publicly, but
Yeah.
you know, I'm telling you a story because of what you just said of like, is my birth doula not a death doula too? You know,
Yeah.
is she
Yeah.
not like she I feel like that happens to me at birth because I'm this close to the other side when I'm deciding to bring these kids into the world. I'm a C-section mama, so I'm like my life is in a surgeon's hands.
Definitely. Yeah.
And
Yeah.
so I had an infection more than one time when I was in birth. I hear all types of stuff. I'm just in the room and one person's talking about work, and I'm like, "Are you gonna get that raise?" I don't know what happens when that happens. I don't know if it's the morphine, but my doula is a death doula too.
Yeah.
She's
Yeah.
a she's bringing life into the world, and that
Yeah.
you know. So the idea that like a chaplain is really there for this reason, I think is also the reason why our sisters and brothers who are in non-binary people who do chaplaincy in a hospital run into such an issue too. When people are like, "I don't need a chaplain." That's the biggest thing I get when I talk to interns or people who I'm helping with their chaplaincy. How do you
Yeah.
get them to let you in? Because I went and I'm like, they don't know what a chaplain's for.
Yeah.
What a chaplain does because it's just specifically always seems like it's so rigid.
Mm-hmm. Much like being a minister, many of us are so different than what ministers have been. Churches had to change. The way that we minister has had to change. And
Yes.
oftentimes when you tell somebody even that you're a minister, they're like, oh,
Yeah.
especially if they've had church hurt.
Of
Oh,
course. They
and
know.
then you feel you got to tell your whole bio, no, I do this and that and this and that and that. And I believe that too. And,
Yeah.
you know, yeah, that's how that is. You are a plethora, a cornucopia. Uh,
The
in
one
your
time a year where
ideas.
cornucopias come out.
Say it again.
The one time a year where cornucopias come out.
Well, perfect timing. See, it just came straight off the top of my head. Straight off the top of my head. I want to share a picture of your book, and I'm going to see if I can get this to show.
Sure.
Give me 1 second. Da, da, da,
I'm
da.
so excited.
Let me
Oh,
see. Is it on the screen?
that's her. Yeah, we see it.
Fabulous. This is Crystal's amazing book, Trap Rituals for the Souls of Black Folks, Tackling Grief, Reconstructing Our Spiritual Lives, and Using Joy as Liberation.
Yes.
Can you give us a brief synopsis of this book for those who are watching today?
Well, I in seminary learned about spiritual disciplines, and they were something that was from the early church, the early Christian church, where there were different people that focused on different ways to get really close to God. And this idea that there was some goal of being more holy or being better. And some people chose to be ascetics and they went into the mountains and they stayed there for a really long time. Some people fasted for a very long time. Some people pray multiple times a day. And I loved that. And my seminary made us try on different spiritual disciplines. And that's how I found Buddhism because centering myself helped with what I didn't know until the pandemic was lifelong anxiety that was undiagnosed. I
Mm,
always felt a shaking. And in the church, it was like, oh, she has that spirit shut up in her bones. And I know my therapist, who is also from my seminary, always tells me, oh, Elijah had anxiety because that's what anxiety feels like, shaking up in the bone, shaking up in your bones. So wanting to approach the conviction and the beauty of committing to spiritual disciplines without the shame of if you can't do it for a long time you're less holy, if you can't fast you're failing, if you can't commit to them it's not good enough. Taking that away from it and just those are the bones that I'm spitting out and just the meat of it's really cool and it's really helpful and it's really nice to commit or to experience doing something ritualistic
mm,
because ritual helps take us out of ourself and take us out of our head and take us out of our reasoning and bring us into our body and say what feels good. And
Mm.
so, with that being said, there's stuff that we do that already feels that way. There's stuff we already do. So, what I did was compile 55 things, and only 25 are going to be in this book. And I'm going to write a second part. 55 things, so 25 this time, that are already spiritual,
Mm.
already spiritual disciplines. We redo our rooms. I have a very, my best friend, my cousin, redoes her room all the time. I have people who, smoke and have sex, and they talk about the high. And I've had people who routinely drink at a certain point. They have a certain bottle of wine when they get a promotion. Those things are rituals. Those things are spiritual discipline. So I wanted to create something where people understood, just like we talked about early in the conversation, that I'm not a minister like that. So I named it Trap Rituals so that people understood they were going to be in store for things that are a little subversive or a little outside of the lens of the normal position of the church of holiness, and things that are like praying and fasting. But those things come up. Those are still things I identify. And so the other parts of the title, tackling grief, is because that's just my approach to life. Of like, there's a lot of things that create loss. There's a lot of things that create that feeling of loss, and we don't call it grief enough. And because we don't name it, it lingers. Because we don't call a thing, we don't heal from it. So some of these might help people call a thing a thing. And then using joy as liberation was the third one, because I do think that being happy as Black folk is resisting. That joy is something that is everlasting. I love that from my
Absolutely.
Christian background. Yeah, like not just being happy, not just doing something that makes you happy once. Like actual joy is sustainable. So each one of the passages has a reflection for me and then things to consider. So the DIY section, in the things to consider section, I say if it ain't in your budget, don't do the project. So like joy is a long-term thing, not just happy, not just I ate this and I feel better. Joy. And so that's the third one. And the second one is reconstructing our spiritual lives, because I get so tired of the deconstruction movement. I just get so tired of it. Everyone needs it. Everyone needs that ability to deconstruct. Everyone needs someone who they like, or a thought leader, or somebody following Instagram who's deconstructing. But I never see people reconstructing anything.
Mm.
And there are a lot of people I follow. Christian Smith is one of the people I follow that has what is Christian's church? I remember Christian's church name later, but Christian is Kristan. Christian Smith, actually. Kristen has a church, and he has it's called Holy Smokes. That's what it's called. And he has a cigar time, and he has a church once a month in person in Atlanta. He does reconstructing, but he doesn't call it that. Like, this is what I'm giving you. And so a lot of people that went to seminary did deconstruction and were given something in replace. If I'm telling you now that Genesis was written by multiple people and I'm proving it to you, well, maybe I should then also comfort you and give you another way to look at creation. So a lot of the deconstruction movements in Black spaces are missing the what to replace it with. And so what I've noticed is a lot of bitterness and a lot of anti-Christian sharing from people who are reconstructing. And I think it's why it gets such a bad rap and it gets such a negative view from the church. So this book is really also for a lot of people who want to stay in their faith spaces. I'm not asking you to come hang with me unless you
Yeah.
want to, but the people who are in their spaces, their church is telling them that something's wrong with deconstructing. And I don't think that a lot of those pastors believe that, because I know a lot of those pastors are very progressive and went to similar seminaries. I don't think they believe deconstruction is bad. I think they believe that how mad it's making you is bad. And I agree with that. They just have a
Yeah.
very negative way of saying it.
Yeah.
They're saying deconstruction is making y'all not come to church. Deconstruction is making y'all walk away from Jesus. Okay, sure. Yeah, because they're angry. Being angry at everything is bad. And honestly, I tell a lot of people this and they look at me like I have six heads. Being anti-Christian is anti-Black. It just is.
Hmm.
So the amount of us that grew up in Christian churches, the amount of us that like statistically black people that are Christian is so much larger than other races. To approach our liberalness or to approach our interfaithness or to approach our Buddhism with any type of lens that says, "Ew, we don't believe in that anymore, or we're better than them, or we're not Christian anymore," is very anti-black, because it takes those same ideals of white supremacy culture or being better than or being right or perfectionism and says that those who still believe in that are less than us.
Mm.
And when you make those comments, you're talking about a lot of people's grandmamas, about your grandmama, about a lot of people's mamas, about your sisters, about your aunties, about a lot of your friends, about a lot of people you still hang with, people you bang with. So I think that that language comes from us not having something like what I'm trying to create of like what replaces this so people who deconstructed are not so obnoxious, and then what replaces this for people who are Christian and just can't find their way so that they act better and that
Right.
they treat themselves and people around them better.
I mean, and moving forward, I really see um, churching just opening up into this vast, undefined kind of God or gods outside of the box. I think people's spirituality is just really busting open, pretty much.
Oh,
People are really becoming open to new ways of thinking, and people deconstructing, reconstructing their anger and coming into the church. It really puts the responsibilities on the churches to change the way they're churching so that you can come back as you are, deconstructed,
yes,
reconstructed.
yes, absolutely.
So you have been a pleasure.
Thank you.
I'm so appreciative of you taking the time to bring your conversation and your experience to us today. And as I said, we will be keeping in touch to speak in the future very soon.
Thank you.
Again, crystalsayge.com, crystalsayge.com. If you put a /book on there, that will guide you to the page to pre-order Trap Rituals for the Souls of Black Folks, Tackling Grief, Reconstructing Our Spiritual Lives, and Using Joy as Liberation. I appreciate you.
I
Thank,
appreciate it.
thank you so much for blessing us today.
You're so welcome. You're a beautiful spirit. Thank you for having
Oh, thank
me.
you so much. We shall meet again. Everyone, keep your eyes posted to the IMCM website. I'll be posting these links and also the link to this podcast for everyone to see. Have an amazing night, everyone. Thank you, Crystal.